Now we can find our way around a piano, or in fact any musical instrument, and we have names for all of the different pitches that we'll find. You might be thinking, well, that's great, we should just go off and make some music now with those different pitches. Unfortunately, it's kind of not the case that we can do that, because if we go and take the 12 different pitches that we've just been learning about and start putting them together into music with no kind of pattern or structure, I think you might find the results rather disappointing, in fact possibly a little bit disturbing. Just to let you know, this keyboard at the top of the screen that you can see right now is just there so that you can see exactly what I'm playing on my piano. As we become more and more advanced and we're talking about more and more complicated ideas, I thought it'd be really useful to have a tool like this so that I can show you exactly what I mean on the piano, and you can see it right here on the screen. So just to try out our new tool here, let's hear all of the different pitches from A to A. There's our A, there's our high A, and I'm going to fill in the space by playing all the notes in between. So what would happen if I did use all of the different notes on my piano at random without any kind of pattern or structure? Well, let's have a listen. I think you'll agree that's not the greatest or most beautiful piece of music that you've ever heard. And so to organise the pitches that we're using in our music a little bit better, we tend to use things called scales. Scale. I should write that here. Scale. Now a scale is just a collection of different pitches that we're going to be using for a particular piece of music. So instead of using the 12 different pitches at random, the reason we use scales is it helps us organise the different pitches into groups that kind of work better together. Here's one of the scales that we're going to be looking at in this lesson. Take a listen to your first scale, actually in this case just using the white notes. Just using the letter-named white notes instead of the flat and sharp black notes instantly gives us a group of notes that we can work with in a piece of music. So I'm going to do the same experiment again as I just did before, but this time I'm going to only use the white keys and not the black keys. Now it might still not sound perfect, but I hope you'll find it sounds a lot more pleasant to listen to than the first piece that I played. So already just choosing a slightly smaller group of notes to work with in a piece gives us a much better chance of writing something that works well together. Because not all the different notes on the piano work well together in music. Sometimes we use them for special effects, sometimes we want to produce something that sounds a little bit unpleasant to listen to or a little bit difficult to listen to. But quite a lot of the time in music we want to be using groups of notes that work really well together. So as music developed, musicians kind of got a sense for which of the groups of notes worked well together and which ones worked less well together, and started to use these more and more often in their music. So perhaps the first group of notes or scales that we should learn is the major scale. Major scale. Now you've actually heard a major scale already in this lesson, because when I started on the note C and went up through the white notes on the piano, I was playing a major scale. It just so happens that when we start on a C and go up through the white notes, we get the particular arrangement of notes that we need to produce a major scale. That's not to say we have to start all major scales on C, but we need to use a different combination of white and black notes to get the same effect. But let's not worry about that for the moment. Let's just look a little bit more closely at how we get this arrangement of notes we call the major scale. In the last lesson we talked about how we can measure jumps through the different pitches on the piano or any instrument by using tones and semitones. Just write this up here. And we said that a tone was equal to 2 semitones. Now, to build a major scale, all we have to do is use the right collection of tones and semitones. So, the collection of tones and semitones to produce a major scale is as follows. First we start off with a tone, and then another tone, then a semitone, then a tone, then a tone, then a tone, then a semitone. So let's just see how that pattern of tones and semitones maps onto the piano, just to prove that we do indeed get this collection of notes that makes a major scale when we use the pattern tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So we're going to take our first note of the scale, that is the C, see over here. And to get our second note, we need to use a tone. So I'm going to put the numbers of the scale. So we would call this C probably the first note of the scale. But to get to the second note of the scale, I'm going to need to go up 2 notes on the keyboard, or 2 semitones to make this tone. So we're going to go up to the C sharp, and then up to the D, and that will give us our second note of the scale. So I'm going to just draw a box around it there. And then to get to the next one, we need to go up a tone again. So 1, 2. And there we have it. There's the E, so that's our next note. So for the next step in the scale, we need to just go up a semitone rather than a tone. So we just want the next note up, which is this F here. So we might say that's the 4th note of this scale. And then we want a tone for the next one, so up 2 notes, 1, 2. There's our G. Carry on the pattern, another tone. Just put all these numbers in. There we go. So for the 6th note of the scale, we want another tone, so that gets us to A. And the 7th note of the scale is another tone, so we need to go to B. And finally, a semitone to finish off the scale. The 8th note of the scale, or the first note, because it's the same, obviously the same letter name. So we could say that was scale degree 8 or 1. And that's given us, just using that pattern of tones and semitones, that's given us exactly what I showed you before, which was all of the notes along the white keys between C and C. So let's have a listen one more time to that scale and really try and get the sound of it into our heads. Now, it's just a coincidence that when we use this pattern of tones and semitones starting on C, we get all the white notes on the piano. It's just because of the way that the white and black notes are ordered on the keyboard. But we can play a major scale starting on any of the notes. As long as we use this pattern of tones and semitones, it'll turn out right. So just as an example, here's a major scale starting on a C sharp. Oh, we'll use this one up here instead. There we go. And it should hopefully sound quite similar to the scale that I just played starting on a C. Now, lots of musicians will tell you how awful and boring it was to have to learn all their scales, and this is what they were talking about. It was learning how to make these familiar groups of notes starting on different keys on their instrument. So they would have to learn exactly which notes they needed to use to make a major scale starting on an E. Here's an E. And it makes the same sound as the C major scale, but it just starts on an E, and you'll see I used a few of the black notes there. I am a veteran of many, many years of scale practice, and so therefore I can make a major scale starting on any note. That was E flat. So if you want to give someone a challenge and see how well they know their scales, ask them for one with lots of black notes in to see how well they've learnt them. So a good one is B, for example, because you'll see all of the black notes being used in this particular scale. So just to finish off, I'm going to play you some melodies that will be very, very familiar to you. I'm sure you will have sung them. I'm sure you will hear them very, very regularly. But now you know which scale they use, because they all use the major scale.